Hello friends, my name is Dave Cirino, singer, songwriter, producer, engineer, and today I'm going to be talking about mixing. Part 2 is a tutorial, and I'll be talking about the basics of EQ and listening position. I wanted to get into compression, but I don't have time. I will definitely get into compression next week, and each week I will do another part on mixing. Please feel free to send me your questions. It'll make it easier for me to do my tutorials, so I can cover some things that you guys have questions about. Alright? Like I said last week's tutorial, if you don't have this book, Mixing Engineer's Handbook, you might want to consider getting it off of Amazon.com. It's a great book, has a lot of information in it, and it will help you out with your questions. And definitely do your research on your own, and have other resources that can help you when you learn, when you're teaching yourself and learning how to mix. Alright, let's get into it. I have my notes here. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is listening levels. I get a lot of questions about how to monitor your mixes. Should you wear headphones when you're mixing? Should you listen to just the speakers while you're mixing? First things first, I do not recommend mixing your music with headphones. I just do not recommend it. Why? Because mixing your music with headphones actually colors the sound, and it doesn't give you an accurate image, an accurate representation of your music in comparison to mixing your music with like powered monitors, like these KRKs. I do not recommend mixing your music with headphones. I used to, when I first started off when I was a beginning engineer. I'm still learning as well. But when I first started off, I actually did mix with headphones, and I learned quickly that's not the way to go. So I do not recommend mixing your music with headphones. I definitely recommend mixing with monitors. All right. What you could do though, if you want to use headphones, is you could mix with the monitors, and you can check your mixes with the headphones. Just check them and see where they sit. And I do that from time to time, but I do not mix with headphones. Okay. Let's talk about listening levels. When you're mixing your music and monitoring your music, you don't want to listen and monitor your music at like very loud levels. Some engineers, they have their preference. Some engineers, they do mix with loud levels, but these are guys who have golden ears and has been in the business for years and are just pros. But starting off, I don't recommend listening at extreme high levels. Number one, it causes ear fatigue, and number two, it can also cause ear damage. So I do not recommend listening to your mixes while you're mixing at very high levels. What I recommend doing though is when you mix your music, you should mix your music at speaking level volume. You don't want to mix it too low, but you don't want to mix it too loud. You want to mix it to where you can pretend you're having a conversation with someone in the room. Like, hey Bill, what's up? How you doing? How's it going? How was your day today? That's a speaking conversation level. That's the level that you want to be mixing your music at. Let me briefly explain. For example, this is my song "Breath of Fresh Air" on iTunes. This is my single that I mixed here, and this is a loud level. You do not want to mix that loud. It's too loud. What you do want to do when you mix is you want to mix it at a level like this. You know what I'm saying? Alright, so that's it for the monitors. Let's talk about the monitor setup for a minute. The monitors, your speakers, whatever, should be behind your console when you're mixing. Some people, for me, for example, in a home studio, this would be my console, okay? Because this is my computer. But because of my setup, it's a small setup, I can't really have my speakers behind my console, so I kind of have it parallel or equal with my computer, my console, okay? So basically, if you don't have this setup, if you don't have like a mixing console, I just use this. This is my computer, this is my console. you have to just basically try to set it up the best way you can. All right, as you see, I have it set up here. Let's talk about for a moment the foam that I have under my monitors. You definitely want to go out and purchase some foam. You can get it from Guitar Center. I believe RLX makes some that you can put under your monitors. What this does, it helps to prevent bass rumble. Usually, if I had these speakers just sitting on the table like I have it here, when I'm mixing, the bass is going to make like rumble, and it's going to be unwanted bass, and it's going to confuse my ears. So what you want to do is kind of have like foam like this that can absorb the bass when you're mixing. It's going to give your bass translation in your mixes a more accurate sound. All right. And also take into consideration, most home studio users and owners, they don't have properly treated rooms, so it is harder to mix music in rooms that aren't properly treated. But sometimes you just have to do the best with what you have, and this will definitely help. Okay. All right, guys. That's it for the listening levels. Let's get into EQ for a minute. Just the basics. I'm not going to cover too in depth about EQ, because EQ is such a broad topic, but I definitely recommend researching it on your own. But let's get into it for a minute. EQ. What is EQ? EQ is short for equalization, and the technical term is it's the process of using passive or active electronic elements of digital algorithms for the purpose of altering the frequency response characteristics of a system. What does that mean to you? Basically, just to keep it simple in layman's terms, you want to use EQ to carve your sound. All right. It's important to use EQ to create the sound that you're looking for. Okay. Basically, the whole principle of EQ is what you're doing is you're taking away harmonics and you're adding harmonics. When you cut, you're taking away unwanted harmonics and unwanted sounds in your track. You're actually cleaning your track. You're carving it by taking away the unwanted harmonics. By taking away the unwanted harmonics, it's making your sound actually cleaner. It's making it sound a little bit better, a little bit more crisp. You can also add harmonics by boosting EQ. I don't really recommend boosting too much, but you can do that if you want. If you want to add more bass or something, or add more fatness to it. But I usually do that with compression. And I recommend cutting before boosting. Always cut first before you boost. Alright? And like I just said, a key note in using EQ is better to take away than to add from it. But in our next tutorial next week, I'm going to get more in depth on EQ. And usually with EQ in the digital realm, it's different when you're doing it in the analog realm when you have hardware. But I'm doing my tutorials based off of digital recording. So in the digital realm with Logic, Pro Tools, Sonar, whatever you have, Cubase, when you're recording your music, EQ usually comes in a plugin as a plugin format. All right, and it comes with your digital audio workstation. EQ is one of the first things that I do when I get ready to mix. That's the first thing I do, is I want to carve my sound. I carve each individual track individually to give it its own unique, distinct sound. So what I'm doing is I'm carving, I'm cutting away, I'm taking away the unwanted harmonics, taking away the unwanted bass of each track, and I'm carving each individual track, each vocal individually, each instrument individually is carved and EQ to perfection. EQ is a major tool, guys. It's a major tool, and it's a major weapon in your arsenal of mixing. All right, and what it does is basically it shapes and it molds it, and it creates a sound that you're looking for. A lot of beginners, they overlook EQ, but EQ is very important. Okay, there's different aspects of EQ that I want to get into if I have enough time. I don't have that much time. I am running out of time. But there's a couple aspects of EQ that I'm going to get into next week, along with compression. That's the Hey guys, unfortunately I ran out of time on my mixing tutorial. But I'm going to get into those aspects I talked about next week. I'm Dave Cirino signing off. Thanks for watching my tutorial, and have a good day.